Like my new aquascape? What's up, thefishguy225 and YouTube? Coming at you. It's Salty Wayne. And I got an email the other day saying I want to convert my 38 gallon into a fowler tank, and then when I get a little more experience I want to convert my 10 gallon into a reef. Red flag went up. Boom, bombs went off. If you do a 10 gallon reef, it's World War III in your tank, seriously, unless you know what you're really doing. Well, this is why I recommend. You got a 38 gallon, and a lot of people plan their fish, they plan their tanks around their fish, and I think that's, how can I phrase that? What you should do is you should plan your tank around your fish, not your fish around your tank. You know what I mean? Like, just don't get the fish that can fit in your tank because you set the tank up already, and now you can't really get the fish you really want. Find out what fish you really want, and that's in your budget. Now, if you can't afford some fish that gets huge or needs really excellent water conditions, don't get it because you can't afford it. It doesn't have the best housing. Figure out what fish you can afford through its habitat it needs and the food it needs and whatnot, and figure out what it needs, what it likes, just figure out everything about that fish that you really like if you can afford it. Then figure out how much is it going to take to set up that tank. Now, if the tank's too much, go down to the next fish. You know what I mean? That's what I recommend for saltwater, is figure out what fish you want, then set up the tank for that fish's conditions it needs. Because if you do it the other way around, let's say I stacked all the slide rock into just one pile, like a lot of people do, like they double box the rocks, and well, I had two aggressive fish in here. What happens when they need territorial space and they need to hide from each other? You know how I got my rocks like this? This is what I like. I really love this setup. I love this in saltwater. Just look right here. I think it's modeled after cichlids, to be honest with you, or cichlids modeled after this, vice versa. But sometimes this occurs in the wild. You see this in the wild. The riptides and stuff, they shape their rocks into stuff like this. But what this does, it allows a lot of territorial spaces for fish, and they can get away when they're fighting, and they can hide more, and it's just a lot better. Now, Pat said make caves. Caves are excellent for fish that like to hide, but I hate them. I hate them because detritus gets in there. There's no water flow. It ends up bad. It can really kick your ass 10 years later in your tank. You can have a huge hair allergy bloom or something, but that's a different story. So what I recommend is go out and get the fish you want. Well, don't get the fish you want. Research the fish. Research everything. You like my powder brown tang? Okay, let's say, powder brown tangs need a minimum of 4 foot space. 4 foot. Doesn't matter how tall a tank is. Well, it does. You don't want to have something too narrow, but I mean too short or narrow. But they need a minimum of 4 foot space. It really wouldn't make a difference if they're in a 100 gallon or 55 or 75 or 90. It's just 4 foot space. Okay, now say, how do I stack my live rock for this fish? Believe it or not, but tangs love to hide. They need it. The more hiding spots they need, the more they'll come out. And that's with any fish. Actually, tangs, a lot of people don't know this, they need a lot of air. That's why I keep my water level down so low, because my filter can just drain the water back in, and I get air, and it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Believe it or not, tangs need a lot of water flow. That's a 1,800 gallon per hour pump right there. Yeah, that's a lot of water flow. Tangs need it because they need air, a lot of air, and a lot of water flows because they're up to the surface in midsections, and they're just constantly used to that water beating down on them, the heavy water flows, the high oxygen levels. See what I mean? Look, say you didn't plan out the tanks need a lot of air, they need a lot of water flow. And that's what I see a lot. People have like yellow tanks. I see it all the time. They're in a tank, a beautiful reef or something, or maybe a fowler, and every other fish is doing great, but that one fish is just looking bad. It's got a stress mark, and you're feeding it the right foods and stuff, but you wonder why it looks bad. It's because it doesn't have enough water flow, and it doesn't have enough oxygen in the water. And that's a good example of what I mean. A lot of people spend a lot of time wondering why certain fish are stressed, and it's because you didn't do every little bit of research you could on that fish. Take it to heart, man. listen, you need to plan out the fish before you plan out the tank. If you plan out the tank, then you plan out the fish, you're more likely to run into errors. I'm not promising you won't run into errors if you do the fish first, then the tank, because you're going to run into errors no matter what you do. I don't care if you're New York Steelo or Mark Callan, you're still going to run into problems. I mean, you can be Dustin's fish tanks from freshwater, and he still runs into problems too. No one is absolutely, I guess you would say, immortal when it comes to aquariums. There's so much to know. There's only one person that knows everything about it, and you all know who that is. Like I said, man, I got some videos made up already. I'll put them in the description, because it's just, if I was to explain everything I know about saltwater, I swear I'd be on this camera for a week straight, just talking and talking. Might be longer than that, but it's not likely to. My camera's running out, guys. Comment, rate, subscribe. I'm sorry. Later.